I commit to creating unity and friendship in our shared journey. We're not simply two people who live together, but companions who look after each other. We find pleasure and meaning as we seek, discover, and build our connection and usness. You might remember that I talked about some numbers during the 5 stages of marriage. About 5% of couples are living in enchantment, 20% are in disillusionment, and about 40% are in obligation. And what that means is 60% of couples are living either in obligation or disillusionment. And although those numbers, I want to say, are based more on observation than hard research, they certainly correspond with the overall divorce rates of above 50% in Western society. Well, this means that a majority of people are unhappy in their marriages, living either from disillusionment, in which they're outright alienated, or obligation, in which they're not really happy but have settled in for the long haul. But remember this, enjoyment is what brought you and your partner together in the first place. A majority of couples have fond memories of their early days. They were love-struck and found happiness and meaning in being together. But over time, they allowed the business of life, disappointments, conflict, and gradually taking each other for granted to rob them of their good feelings and forget about what attracted them in the first place. Well, that's what friendship is all about. It's about revitalizing your positive feelings and bringing a newness to your relationship. Some couples do this quite naturally as they move from enchantment to disillusionment to obligation and on to friendship. They're unwilling to settle for simply putting up with each other that characterizes obligation, and so they find ways to renew the positive feelings of their earlier days. But other couples allow the good feelings of their early days to die, and there are a lot of reasons. They become busy with life, each pursuing their own goals. Their focus shifts to survival and just getting by. Their roles change over time and even become more complex as their family grows. Or they simply become familiar with each other and take one another for granted and so stop having fun. Here's the important thing. Friendship doesn't just happen. You have to create it or co-create it. You have to take responsibility to make it happen. And that's what makes this so different from enchantment, which seems to happen so effortlessly. Building friendship will not happen if you wait for the magic to happen again, or if you wait for your partner to change. Again, you have to take responsibility for it and make it happen. One name I want to mention in this field is John Gottman at the University of Washington in Seattle, and I've mentioned his name before. He might be the most respected researcher on marriage in the world. For 4 decades now, John and his wife, Julie, have studied thousands of couples to understand their communication and behavior patterns, and that of happy versus unhappy couples. And the way it works is that couples are invited into an apartment where they live for a weekend. You know, they'll come in on a Friday night and leave on a Sunday evening. And cameras are set up throughout the apartment to record their interactions. Can you imagine what that would be like? In addition, each person is hooked up to a Holter monitor to measure their physiological responses to one another, their heart rate, blood pressure, sweat output, and so on. From this research, Gottman has been able to separate out the happiest couples from the least happy. In fact, he can predict with over 90% accuracy which couples will divorce from just a few minutes of interaction. Well, the purpose of his research is to teach couples the practices of the happiest couples. What do? What makes them different? Well, Gottman and other marriage researchers have concluded from thousands of hours of studying happy and unhappy couples that the most important ingredient of a happy relationship is a phrase he calls positive sentiment override. Positive sentiment override. What the heck does that mean? In simpler terms, it means that the positive feelings outweigh the negative feelings. These couples have built up enough positive feelings towards one another that they're able to override or weather the inevitable storms of couplehood. It doesn't mean that they don't have problems or conflict, nor does it mean that they always handle their conflicts well. It does mean that their positive sentiments or positive feelings are more important than their difficulties. Another way of talking about this, I like the word friendship, which is, of course, the topic of this section of the course. Happy couples cultivate friendship, which leads to overall positive feelings. And this is even more important than their ability to communicate and work out conflict in healthy ways. Most marriage counselors take a communication approach to helping a couple. The traditional belief is that disagreements and conflict keep couples from happiness and enjoying each other. Therefore, they conclude, let's teach them to communicate and help them work through their disagreements and areas of conflict, and they'll have a happy marriage. But frankly, the science says no. Friendship trumps the ability to work through problems and conflict. And that doesn't mean that working through conflict and learning to communicate isn't important. It is. But friendship is even more important. Friendship is walking beside each other. It's giving one another a place to feel connected, important, and included. Not feeling friendship results in anger, withdrawal, and depression. So to build a happy marriage, work first and foremost on your friendship. This is the foundation of a happy and successful relationship.